Hello, everybody, and you're welcome to another exciting episode of the Coffee and Beans podcast. My name is Adesola Balogun, and I want to say a big thank you to our listeners for the feedback on previous episodes. It's been awesome. Thank you. We would keep giving you inspiring content. I promise to continually bring exciting guests that will tell their stories and also inspire and encourage as many of us out there. On today's episode, I have a very good friend of mine. I've known this gentleman for close to two decades or thereabout. His name is Otejuri Ejumaboni, but I call him Tej. Tej is a creative mind. He's a man of many parts. He wears many hats, but currently he's the founder and creative director of Hanker and Rich Leather Goods. Now he says it's just goods, that he's expanding his portfolio. So today I want to do a deep dive into his journey from, his early beginnings up until present day. He's someone whose perspective on life issues is great. His positive mental attitude inspires me a lot, and I want to go straight in and hear him speak and just talk about what has brought him from where he's coming from to where he is now. So, welcome, bro. How you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Thanks for having me, Shola. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. You're very, very welcome. Like I said, we've known each other from the early beginnings up until this present time.
I think it's about 20 years.
20 years. 20 years. I remember the first time I met Tej was at the Student Affairs building. We're trying to do our documentation for. I'm registering as freshers, and I just saw this guy just everywhere, and I'm like, guy. Are you sure you're a fresher? Like,
I think the first thing you said you heard me say was, I'm dead.
I'm dead. I'm like, oh God, what happened? Like, calm down, you know. But I realized that, that's, man. See, if I don't get this thing done now, it means I'm not going. Like that has always been like one thing that I've always admired about you. How did you? Before I even dive into work and all of that, have you always had that? Can do that. I must get what I want. Spirit. Like, how did that come about?
How did that come about? To be honest, I don't. The way we turn out as human beings usually is we attribute it, to the environment in which we grew up. I'll be candid with you. I can't exactly tell you this is how, but I know as a child, I'm a last child. I didn't have so much of restrictions doing stuff. I even remember shortly before we got into university, I started braiding my hair. And
yes, I see. I have a picture of that.
Yeah, I started braiding my hair, and that was back when hippie or alternative hairstyles were really frowned upon by our parents. But they allowed me. Maybe partly because of the fact that they were, like I said, being a last child, and my parents spreading us over a period of 10 years where, my oldest brother is about 10 years older than I am, and I reckon they had seen and done that already.
Like, I don't have energy for
this one. And then I was always the sort of guy who, I always want to experience things firsthand, and I remember growing up, the type of house I was in, when we were a lot younger, we had maids and we had gardeners and all of that. But then, as we began to grow older, especially getting towards like, say, early teens, we started. Our parents started giving us a lot of responsibility. Doing gardening in the house. I remember my dad buying lawnmowers and my parents were, my dad liked gardening a lot, and, buying all the tools, the shears, the wheelbarrows, and would have to be the ones to do all the trimming all of the hedges and all of those things. And, also into, domestic chores in the house where, would be the ones who have to, I shared a room with my immediate older brother, for the period we grew up. And the sort of house where we had our own toilet and bath, and we had to be responsible for,
Right.
Doing all of that clean. And, it was like a mandatory thing for us every Saturday to clean the whole house because, there were tiles in the house and we have to mop and all of that. And, there was a time when in 1990, then my dad had retired, retired as a colonel from the Nigerian army, and we moved to this really large house. It was like a 10-bedder.
Wow.
I'm telling you, and that was a point in my life where I dreaded, the weekends, because that was when we had to clean the whole house. And my pops,
you clean extensively.
Yeah, my pops then was, he would look at everything, speak and span kind of guy. It was so frustrating that he would even buy this sort of like a after polish thing where we had to polish the tiles after mopping them.
Wow.
And that had to stop because we realized that after polishing the tiles, they were so slippery and people would come to the house and fall. Yeah, so he was like, okay, maybe you should polish
that one.
And, that also translated into me at some point also telling my mom that, maybe you should leave the cooking for me in the house. Let me be someone. So I always wanted to learn things and get to know a lot of things firsthand.
Yeah.
And so that's what has, pushed me. I think one other thing that's helped me creatively is the fact that I learn very fast visually.
Yeah.
And, anything that has to do with visual creativity, I only have to, observe for a short while, and and then if I try to do it, I'm almost gonna do it like I've had,
Had you
some
always
experience.
had you always known that you were a creative person?
Oh well, yes, because I remember when I was before I got into university, I had a book where I started writing a lot of ideas for television adverts.
Wow.
And I had told my dad then that I wanted to intern in an advertising agency. My dad always, my dad always looked at me as this child who, while I take you, always
rebel.
asking for, and, at some point I said I wanted a job. I got a job he got me a job in Vitamalt, because we were based in Agbara at the time, and, you had the Vitamalt factory then. For those of you who know what
Vitamalt is, because they don't make that anymore.
So I worked there, but I had to leave because, where I was working, it was the working conditions weren't too convenient. And
what were you supposed to work at as?
Oh yeah, so they got space for me as it's more like I forget the word now, but it was manual work where
like pack the stuff into the boxes.
Pack the stuff into the boxes and do all of that stuff. But it wasn't so convenient because I realized I don't know, for some foreign reasons the gowns or the overalls they gave us to wear, I had some sort of funny skin reaction to that, and I had to leave that, and then I went on to work on my dad's friend's farm. It was a big farm, and I learned a couple of things there. I wish, now that I work there longer because, I wish now that I work there longer because I think farming is something that's very important. If I had some experience from that, it's something I would like to go into now. Because we all have to eat now.
Yeah, true.
Even if you're not farming commercially, you farm for yourself, you feed your family and all of that. So that was it. But, unfortunately, I never got to work in any sort of advertising. And I think also part of what made me think of doing that was my older sister at some point took a course with the Advertisers Practitioner Council of Nigeria. That was before she got into university.
Wow.
At that time, I think they still used to take undergraduates, but I think now they have a mandate where they take only graduates. And I've read a couple of her books, her textbooks from that, and because also growing up, I mean, my parents encouraged us to read, and I picked that up as a habit. And that transition into, I think, is also what has helped me in terms of being able to write, in terms of being able to think, in terms of being able to speak well. I had like the 2 year period where Jam
Jammed
dealt with
us,
me.
yes.
Yeah.
I think a large percentage of us had that
when
period.
Jam dealt with me, I sort of like churned through a couple of my dad's books because if I remember correctly, the house was on 3 levels. So the way it is, you get into the house, and then the couple of stairs, you see the living room, there are a couple of stairs to the dining room area, and then you go up the flight of stairs, you hit my dad's room first.
Wow.
And then you go up another flight of stairs, you hit my mom and my sister's room. They were on the same level.
Same level, okay.
And then, so there was like a corridor connecting my mom's and my mom and my sister's room. And then there was like this really large cupboard section. And half of that, all of my dad's books were in that. So I just used to go there and pick up books. One of the books I really enjoyed reading was Tilop and Grandpa, Third Eye.
Oh, okay.
This very popular monk. I read so many books then, and that really helped me. But I think I did that because when I was in secondary school, I remember being teased by a couple of my friends who were guys because I was constantly exchanging novels with
the girls.
With the girls, who read novels like Sweet Valley High and all of that. I really didn't do Mills and Bones, but I read a couple of other novels and all of that. I think those things were a bit too erotic for me. Yeah, I wonder how the ladies got around reading that at such a young age. But yeah, I reckon that's a story for another day. So I think all of these things all of these experiences come together to mold you into the person you are, and that's why I've gone in the direction of visual creativity.
Right.
And,
I mean, before you became the creative director of Hank and Rich, I know that you did a bit of photography.
Oh yeah, no,
quite a lot of photography.
Yeah.
I mean, like
it was a full-time thing.
You delved into it. How did that come about? Because I remember when we had the discussion and you said, "Oh, you wanted to go into photography." I'm like, you just. So how did that? Let me allow you give the story. How did the decision to go into photography come about? Is it something you had? Were you fascinated by the camera, or how did that happen?
I think so. Camera, and then like when we were in school, you as a young man you begin to get your sense of self, your sense of develop your sense of style, and that was the time when I started reading GQ magazines. You see all of those sort of pictures, and also it's a little bit of the interest in seeing myself documenting our culture as Nigeria, and just basically documenting stuff. I'm also someone who loves to watch movies a lot, so I think that has helped. Because when you watch movies a lot, you see some scenes. You appreciate the sort of work the directors of photographies of those movies do when you see some sort of scenes and the way the shots are taken. So I think all of those things inspired me to go into photography, and also the fact that from experience, me working in 9-to-5 jobs didn't really work well with me.
Yeah,
I think I'm a bit of a restless soul or something, and it just didn't work well with me because not that I didn't get the job done, but I just didn't want to stay in one place. I just didn't want to be restricted to a certain time to work. I didn't want to restrict my time and say, oh, I'm doing this particular thing for 6 months repetitively and all of that. So I think that's part of what pushed me in that direction.
So how actively were you involved? Were you a photographer? Were you in photography for? How actively involved? What determined the space in photography, which was, I think you were doing more of weddings and portraits?
Yes. So to be honest, why I went into photography was, like I said, you want to capture moments. You want to be able to. It was documenting our history and culture, really. But then you have to start somewhere to gain experience.
True.
And the fastest and easiest style of photography to go into at that time was weddings. Because that was when you had a couple of most of our mates started getting married at that time, and it was easy for them to say, "Okay, I know you're good at what you do. Well, why don't you come and take my pictures?" And it was also a time when I needed to make the money to begin to begin my journey as a young man.
Yeah.
And, so I went in that direction, and I was lucky enough to meet people who helped me. I remember one of the guys who I met. He's relocated in the States now. Shea Charles George.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and we've become really, really good friends, almost like a brother to me. And that's somebody who taught me a lot. An older photographer who, sort of like took me under his wings at first, and then we became more like friends and brothers. Yeah. And I learned quite a lot from him. Not only in photography, how to how to position yourself mentally as a man, sort of things, how you begin to look after yourself and do certain things. And that's something I'm even interested in now. I'm sure we'll get to that at some point where I'm quite interested in mentoring young men in Nigeria. And by young men I mean guys from the age of say 18 into the early 20s, mid 20s, because I feel that if I had people to mentor me and sort of
put you in the pathway.
Yes, you'd see the reality of life a lot faster, and then you make a lot of decisions faster. You won't be slow about some decisions. You'd look after yourself more.
Do you think you'll be doing anything differently?
I don't think so, but I think I would have done it faster. Yeah, because because as human beings, our time here is limited, so you want to get as much done as possible. But I also understand that it's not how quick, it's how well.
How well? Okay.
So that's.
So photography was about 8 years. Actively.
Photography, actively for me. I started photography in 2010. I bought my first camera in 2010. Then I still worked at a real estate company. I worked there for about 6 months.
Yes, I know.
And I tell you, I wouldn't have worked there. My uncle made me work there. I'll give you the gist. My uncle was going to buy my first camera for me. I say my uncle, but I mean he's almost like my father because he was classmates with university or secondary school classmates with my dad.
Your dad, okay.
I had that conversation with him. I was like, oh, don't worry, I'll give you a camera. But, the sort of person I am, I still kept, going out for interviews to get jobs. And I got this job the week where he said, okay, come and meet me on a Sunday and I'll write you a check for
your camera.
For your camera. And then, and I learned a very good lesson there. Never give information that is not necessary to give. And so my uncle was writing a check for me. And I said, uncle, I just got a job. And he paused midway in writing the check.
Wow.
And he tore the leaflets and he tore the check in my front.
Wow.
And he said, oh, there's no need for me to give you this check. You just got a job. If I give you this check and you have a camera, you're not going to focus on your job. And, because I didn't keep my mouth shut, I spent 6 months working to raise the money to buy the camera that my uncle wanted to give me
wow.
the money for 6 months prior. But it's a good thing because what that did for me is it put me a little bit into the working environment. And that's something I wish the 9-to-5 environment, that's something I wish I had more experience with.
Yes.
I wish I'd had maybe about 2 years of that before I branched out into doing my own thing, because it teaches you a lot of things, and then it also it will also expose you to a clientele base, because when you work in a company, you're going to meet the clients of the company, and then you build relationships with them. And
very true.
One of the most important things we have as human beings is the relationships we have, it's the connections we have. But that being said, I've charted my own journey, and I've met a lot of fantastic people, along the way, and I'm grateful for that. So that's.
I mean, something important that you said about entrepreneurs working 9 to 5. I'm a strong believer of the fact that it's important to leverage on relationships. There are some relationships that will take longer to build. Some relationships are faster to build when you work in already established firms. Now, the challenge is a lot of people when they get into that system, they get sucked into the vortex. Like, I remember there was a time you and I had a conversation. We both knew that we're going to go into the creative space. You had resigned before me, and you're like, I mean, at a point, I used to run away from you because every time Ted would say, "Shola, how far? When are you resigning?"
Yeah, take that leap.
Take that leap.
Take that leap now, man.
But I'll tell him that, oh, I'm not ready yet. But I realized that I really shouldn't have spent that long. I realized that I got sucked into the everyday working. I mean, I'd felt, I need to learn more. But in truth, it was a fear that was keeping me. So very important for that entrepreneur out there who is working and doing something on the side. Do not lose sight. Do not lose focus. Do not lose sight of the fact that you are supposed to be doing what you're supposed to do. Learn the lessons you want to learn, and then take that leap. Thank you, Church, for that. So where did leather come in, and why leather?
Okay. How did that start? So the way I learn things, so to a very large extent, my photography journey, a lot of what I learned was self-taught. I mean, albeit one or two things I learned from, the older photographers I met. I'm someone who things are easy for to learn by myself because I don't find it difficult to read when I'm trying to learn something, or I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. That's one really powerful resource, I think.
Yeah, shout out to YouTube.
A lot of young people take for granted today, because it's so funny that whatever it is you want to do, once you put it on there, it brings 10 solutions.
Yeah.
And then if you try everything, you already have some experience with how to solve that problem. So I did a lot of watching of videos, extensive reading about cameras, about way before I bought my first camera, about how to use the camera, about photography in general. I still have my photography books until now. I think I bought a photography book recently still,
You're still very much...
I recently bought a camera.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, I recently bought a camera last month.
Okay, but in what role would you be playing in the photography space? Yes?
Well, I mean, photography is quite wide. One of the reasons why I left photography is I was more in the wedding photography space, and it was fast paced
and becoming saturated,
and I wasn't getting any sort of satisfaction from that anymore. But I extremely love photography. During the course of the couple of years where I was majorly into photography, I had a couple of pictures I took. These are pictures you can refer to as documentary style photos. And I only recently framed those photos to hang on the wall in my house. All black and white style pictures and all of that, and fantastic pictures. That I took way back in 2012, 2013. So that's what I want to do now. Documentary style, street style photography. Yeah. So I take. I'm still in contact with the photography community.
Right.
I still have friends who still practice, and I'm like, okay, when you guys are going for any sort of street walk or photo walk, bring me on there. And the beauty of it is that style of photography, you can take time out. You can take a year out and say, oh, okay, I want to take photos every weekend or once every month, to build a collection of photos, and then at the end of that year or 18 months or 2 years, you have an exhibition, you put your photos out there, and then people who are interested in what you have to offer can come buy your pieces.
Okay, there's something you said about satisfaction, and I wanted to just dig a little deeper into it. Where is the place of working to make a living and satisfaction? How does that for that young person who really is already getting bored with that job or that thing that they are doing? Yes. They're not satisfied, but the bills have to be paid. Where do you draw the line? Do you stick it out, or like you look for something like quote unquote more interesting to do or catches your eye and dive straight into it?
That's a good question, Shola. I think whatever decision we make with life, in life, especially regards to finances or a way to make living, it's important that we are very logical and realistic about that decision. And also, my journey from photography into making leather goods wasn't an abrupt one. It spanned a couple of years, and so what I did was I started out crafting leather items as a hobby. I bought all my tools and, started doing that as a hobby.
While still playing actively
Because that funded me buying all of my tools, buying leather, setting up my small workshop in the house and all of that, So it's important that you have some sort of plan, even if you have a job or you're working to a 9 to 5 and then you want to transition
into some another.
It's important that you have a plan. It's important that you've probably made some sort of financial plan in terms of saving, or you're starting the business while you're still working and doing your thing. I think that was easy for me because the photography was my business. I had my own time.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a different scenario from when you're on another person, an organization's time, and you have to be there from 9 to 5.
Yes.
Because as a photographer, especially a wedding photographer, you realize that most of the time you're actively out of the house only on weekends. And then, you're editing during the week, answering calls, talking to clientele, and you find that you have a lot of free time, especially if you've now found a way to if you've now put a process in place with regards to how you sort your editing and delivery. And at that time, I already had a group of people, younger people, who I could say, okay, you are the person. I've taken all the photos this weekend. I have two assistant photographers with me at the wedding. We take all the pictures. We have somebody who is already going to sort through the photos. We have somebody who is going to edit the photos. We have somebody who is going to arrange the photo book. We have somebody, all of that. I already had that time, so I could begin to look into doing something else. So I think that's one of the factors that helped me. But it still took, a little bit of time
to plan.
Yes, and I think I don't really think I've fully left photography, because being that is something I worked at for, I've done for, say, about 12 years now.
Yeah, 12, yeah.
When you have experience, you can deliver with very short notice.
Yep.
So if someone called me up today and said, "Oh, I have a wedding this weekend," or "I have a wedding in a month's time and I want you to shoot," I already have, the guys I'll call and say, okay, these are guys who, when they started photography, worked with us. They now have their own, they're now running their businesses. But I can always reach out to them and say, "Are you free today? Are you free on so date? Okay, I want you to shoot for me. This is what I'm offering. This is how we're going to do this." And then we get it set, and, we can also deliver, because, like I said, there's already a process in place,
Yeah, because my next question was going to be, do you still take a wedding job? If it comes to your desk, do you accept?
Yes, I do, but it depends. Most of the time, I take wedding jobs for people I'm really close to.
Close to, I know.
So the last wedding I did was my older brother's brother's wedding, and it also coincided with a mutual friend. I forget his name now, but we nicknamed him Agali.
yes.
Ayodeji.
Agali.
So those weddings happened pretty much the same weekend.
Yes.
And we shot both weddings, So I think it's the experience that allows for you to be able to handle that, I remember back when I started shooting weddings and I had just one camera and it was just me shooting the whole wedding, So you go through that sort of thing. It gives you experience. You're able to handle the pressure, and then,
Wow.
It's life, But you need to always learn to throw yourself in the deep end, because I think by nature we're made to be able to withstand adversity, as human beings, and it's no life trying to shy away from difficulty.
Yeah.
I think also difficult situations, difficulty in life is the major ingredient that helps us to deliver, to develop ourselves,
yeah,
mentally,
and grow stronger.
And spiritually, and because if you've never been in a difficult situation in life, then you don't understand empathy. You don't understand that you need to be there for other people, and things like that. Yeah.
So how's your foray into the leather making been? I mean, I see that. I see that you have really carved a niche for yourself, and it's just so amazing. It just feels like any what's it called, a category or anything you do, and you go into that space, it's like you carve a niche. You want to be like Richard Branson. You do one thing, you be good at it, leave it, go on to the next one, and then So, but how's the leather making space been for you? Is it everything you thought it would be when going in? What would you say are your major challenges? What would you say? What would you say the prospects are? Let's start with that before we delve further into the questions.
Well, for me, it's been. I mean, to be honest, it's been interesting. The beauty about starting a journey is you never know the direction in which it will take you. It started out, like I said, as a hobby, and at some point I said, okay, I think I can do this full time. I went into making leather items because I'm someone who likes nice leather items. I'm sure you can see from the shoes I'm even wearing right now. So it started as a hobby, and I think sometime in 2015 I ordered bags from a personal shopper in the US. And the bags, arrived, and I looked at the bags and all of that, and I'd already picked up an interest in making leather.
Man.
I'd already started watching the videos. I already had my tools, and the bag arrived, and I looked at the bag and I'm like, I'm sure I can make something, as good as this, is not better.
Wow.
And that's where it started for me, really, to be honest.
Had you started making stuff before then?
Yeah, some things, But I think for me, it's always been the fact that you look at the best people in the industry and ask yourself and also task yourself to be able to do, as well, if not better than what they're doing. And you realize that when you're looking at any sort of entity from a distance, there's always some sort of mystery. But then when you throw yourself in there, you demystify it, you realize that it's something that you can conquer. If you
set your mind to it.
Set your mind to it, and you're diligent, and you're serious about what you're doing, and you're disciplined. So that's how it started. It started that way, and I remember there was a time when I made a backpack for myself. I'd already started making items, but I was still in photography, and I went to a client's house to shoot pictures for the wife's. I think it was her 50th or 40th birthday. I don't remember the age now. And I had this tan backpack I made, all handmade, and the husband saw it and he was like, "Oh, I saw this bag in a shop in London."
Was that the bag that you used as a template to redo? What the one you bought from the personal shopper?
No. I told him, I said, I don't know what. No. I didn't make any of
okay.
No. I started coming up in my own designs.
Your own designs, okay.
Because that's the beauty of being original. You have to come up with your own designs, and And I told him, and I said, "Oh, I made the bag," and he was like, "Oh, you're a bloody liar." And I'm like, "Sir," he was a general in the army. I was like, "Sir, no, I'm not lying. I made this bag." And he was like, "Okay, we'll see if you're saying the truth." He says, "I want you to make a bag for my wife." I said, "What type of bag?" He says he wants me to make a briefcase. I said, "Okay." And then he says how much. I gave him pricing, and it was new to me. And I went into that transaction with him to challenge myself, because I never made a briefcase at the time. Yeah. And he said, so when he asked me, I said, "Okay, I'll make this briefcase for you for 40,000 naira. And he said, "Okay, no problem."
This is from 2015.
Yeah, no, between 2015 and 2016, and I said, "I'll do it for that price." And so he gives me an advance of about 50%. I go, I buy the leather, so that was a learning curve for me. I made the briefcase, I delivered. The guy was surprised, he was. So I did that, and shortly after that, I think it was in late 2016, early 2017, thereabout. Shortly after that, we had our first leather fair, and I sold my first briefcase for about 150,000 naira. Along with other bags. You see, the backpack I told you about, that he said he saw in.
Yeah.
I had used that backpack for I don't know, 6 to 7 or 8 months or something. And there was this old man at the fair who was like, I want to buy this bag that you've used. I said, sir, it's a used bag. He said, no, I want to buy this bag that I use and all that. And then selling the bag to him for 50,000 naira. That was in 2017. And, so after the fair, I get a call from this general and he says, he wants me to come and see him to make some more bags for him. But, I couldn't tell the guy that if I'm making a briefcase for you now, it's 150,000 naira.
Because it's like
a couple of months ago.
A couple of months ago, it was 50K.
So I just dodged the guy until he stopped calling me.
No, but what do you think? What do you think his reaction would have been if you had told him there was an increase?
I don't know. I maybe I should have gone to him.
I think that in itself is also a challenge with a lot of entrepreneurs.
Yeah, pricing.
Pricing is an issue
because it's a steep. How did they say that? It's a slippery slope to navigate.
Yes, because especially with people who have known you when you started.
Yeah.
And they see that there's been a growth mentally. There's been a growth, and then you tell them that the old price doesn't work anymore, and they start giving you tales of, we supported you when you first started.
Yeah,
and all of that.
I think this is the way it works. Business is always going to be business, right? I also understand there's a human element, and so one of the ways I work now, especially when I'm making items for family and friends, I have like a standard
discount,
family and friends discount, which I put it in there. It's I think family and friends is somewhere between 10 and 20. Mostly 20% discount for family and friends, I've had conversations with my family members, and so it's a case of you're either buying the item from me, or when I'm good and ready to make you a gift,
you wait
until I can, because and the reason is because you get to a certain level where your time. You need to begin to value your time.
Yeah.
It's the most valuable commodity you have. And then as you grow, you begin to employ staff who, come rain or shine, you have to give them their payment. You have to pay their salaries. And so anybody who takes you seriously or values your business should be willing to pay, because you are creating value.
Value. Mm-hmm.
And in exchange for that value, something has to be given, in return. And so it's only natural for us as human beings to be emotional and say, but I'm your friend now, but...
I was there when you first started. Now, buy your first...
No, it really doesn't matter. If you were there, that's fine, but, you haven't taken that journey with me. And you don't have as much knowledge as I do.
Of this craft.
You were there when I started, but you can't do what I'm doing.
Straight up.
So those are some of the things. And the beauty of it is, no matter how creative you are, I think as a person... whatever creative space I go into, apart from drawing or painting, because I'm totally crap when I try to draw or paint, I think I'm better at sketching bags now because I've had a little bit of training. You were drawing, painting, I think I'm crap. But I think if I was to go into, tailoring like you, I think I'll do well.
Gotta extend your space.
No. I think I'll do well.
The sky is big enough
I think
for
I'll
everyone.
do well. So it's just, I think people always ask me that, how come you're able to, make such good items? Did you have any sort of
formal training?
And I'm like, no, I learned this thing myself. I pushed myself. I did a lot of reading. There's that eye for detailing. There's that, and that attitude of, let me just do it. The way we do in Nigeria, kasari she.
Let's just quickly do it.
Excuse my French. Or pak.
Sharp.
Nah, that's the the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is that extra. Well, that's what makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
So with leather goods, it's your finishing.
Yeah.
And your attention to detail. And that's why we love international products so much.
Yes, I was going to ask that benchmarking against international products. What have you seen is the reaction or the reception of your goods to so for instance, there are 2 bags here. I know that you also have your goods priced in dollars.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, so what's the reaction of people to Nigerian made goods, which are equally as good as the foreign counterparts? Do you find there to be a disparity in terms of why should I pay this much?
Oh yes,
Yeah,
all the time. But you with time, especially when you believe you're truly creating value, you and also with it comes with exposure and experience. You develop a thick skin to those sort of remarks
yeah.
and individuals that have that sort of mindset. And right off the bat, you understand that this is not the sort of clientele I want.
Yeah.
And if you work with that mindset, you realize that the clientele that appreciate and are willing to pay for, the services you're offering, just, naturally gravitate towards you.
Yeah.
But I have that, especially at fairs, where recently at the Lagos Leather recent edition, I think that was in June or July. June 12th, 13th. I had these briefcases that were priced about $500, and so we did the conversion. I think at that time the dollar was 600 and something, but we just put it 600. And those briefcases went for about 300,000 naira.
Yeah.
So. And somebody came to me and said, 300,000 naira, but that's almost $1,000. And I'm like, how do you mean? He says, but central bank. I said, please, sir, you get your dollars from central bank directly. I said, if you get your bank from central bank directly, just take the 300,000 naira. Give me the 300,000 naira like that now. And, I was like, and he kept coming back. So you see that he saw the value.
But he just couldn't pay it with the price.
No, it's not a paying with the price. It's the fact that it's made by a Nigerian. And I don't think you deserve that much. And I don't work with people. I don't bat an eyelid for people like that. I don't bat an eyelid. It doesn't have anything to do with animosity. It's knowing what,
I bring to the table.
Yes, and sticking by it.
Right.
I remember when I was talking to an older friend of mine, 1407 London. He had a local brand, but he's also based in the UK, and he makes things in Nigeria and also in the UK. I think it's 1702 London, I think. Yeah. So he was talking to me and he was like, someone giving me a scenario he had with a client who said, but and this was years ago. He was like, you price your leather sneakers for about 60,000 naira. But that's too high now. It's not Mushin you buy your leather. I know how much you sell leather in Mushin.
A fellow leather guy.
No, a client.
A client, okay, all right.
No, I know how much you buy leather in Mushin. And I'm like, and he was like, okay, well, he told the guy, I was like, okay, go to Mushin. I know one guy in Mushin. He sells really good leather. His name is Obiora. Go to his shop, tell him you're from me, buy the leather. When you finish, come out 2 shops down. There's another guy who makes sneakers in Mushin there. His name is Suzu Person. Tell him you're from me. Give him your leather. He'll make the sneakers for you at Suzu price. And the guy was like, no, but I like you. And he's like, then pay me what I'm asking for. So that's the thing. It's not only just about the material. If a piece of leather costs 5 naira, and then I put my skill into it to turn it into a product that is at the same level with what you get with the international brand, then you should give me the value I'm asking for. I've put value in it, and that's one thing that has actually changed my thinking, because as somebody who makes items, 10,000 naira raw materials, you can convert to 100,000.
Yeah.
And so that you begin to even value money differently. But people have to, pay for expertise.
Yeah.
And I think one of the reasons we have that challenge is because we're not really value oriented in Nigeria. We don't want to give value. We don't understand value exchange, but it's changing. It's beginning to change because we're at an age where, creative people are definitely the future of the country. Because we're in an economy where we don't manufacture anything, and manufacturing itself is creating. And for us to get from where we are now to a better place, then we have to begin to create. So that's basically it with pricing. And sticking by your prices. And you'll understand that, you are creating value when you have international clientele.
Yeah.
Not even batting an eyelid at your prices.
Because
you realize that, like, some of the briefcases I make from makers like myself, and I'm not talking about international brands that have, like Louis Vuitton and co, that have been there for 100 plus years. I mean, like, regular craftsmen like myself who maybe started their businesses 10 years ago would make a briefcase similar to something I'm making and sell it for $3,000.
Wow.
Yes. And so if I tell you, I want $1,000 for it.
I mean, you're not asking for too much.
No, you can either go and buy his own. Another thing I realize is when people buy things from you because they know you and they know you're Nigerian, they say, but this place is like this.
Yeah, they try to look for flaws.
Yeah, but from my experience as someone who makes items, you realize that when you look at foreign items critically, handmade items, they have flaws too.
They also have the same flaws.
They have the same flaws. So I try to tell people, especially when I'm coaching younger people, I say, listen, there's nothing being done in Europe, in North America, wherever, in China, that is better than what we're doing here. Yeah, the thing is the mindset. When you change the mindset and begin to do things properly, then you realize that you make products that are on the same level, if not even better than what you have coming from.
Speaking of young people, I also know that you do a lot of training programs for young people. What would you say has been your greatest? No, let me circle back. What would you notice has been what would you feel you have noticed about young people and their reaction towards the skill that you're trying to impart into them? 1, 2. What would you say is the greatest takeaway as a trainer now, not just being an entrepreneur selling, you're also imparting your skill into the younger generation?
That's a good question. I like the fact that you touched on that aspect because when I started out making, when I started out on the journey of making leather products, I never thought I was going to train anybody.
It's always like that now. Like, I know, right?
I never thought that was going to happen. And, my mentor, Femi Handbags, Mrs. Femi Olayebi. Yeah, she's a fantastic lady, fantastic woman. I owe her a lot because she's giving me a lot of responsibility, which has actually helped me grow mentally. And, she reached out to me at the time, that was in 2017, after the first
leather fair
edition.
And the leather fair is put together. It's our brainchild.
Yeah, it is our brainchild.
So shout out to Femi Handbags.
Yeah, and she said, "Oh, Atajiri, there's a training coming up. Would you be interested in being the facilitator of the training?"
What was your first reaction?
I said yes right away. And you know why?
Why?
I got to a point in my life where I said, every opportunity that's going to come my way this period, I'm going to say yes to it.
At that point, did you feel you were ready? Did you feel you had enough information to impart?
No, I mean, like, it's almost like going to write an exam.
You never really say because, I mean, you were 2 years in.
Yeah.
You were 2 years in, yeah. So most people would have said, what do I
was 2 years in. But you see, the thing in that time is I had done extensive reading. I had a lot of downloaded videos.
Right.
So it's sort of like for every sort of hand tool they use, I have a video that explains how the hand tool is used, what the name of the hand tool is, how the machine is used. And that's the way I approach things. When I want to learn something, I learn it intricately. It's so bad that even the machines I have in my studio now, I know all of the parts. I know how to fine-tune the machine. But that doesn't mean I do it because my time is more important. Mm-hmm. But I have an idea
of how it works. And we all should have that idea. If you're trying to build a business, you should have an idea of all aspects of it. All the processes.
And so I go out of my way to read the manuals for the machine. I mean, I'm detailed, And so, I wasn't sure I was ready. But then I went there. I remember the first class, I was trembling when I started talking. But, a couple of minutes into, say 10 minutes into, it was, the students were asking me questions about, what is this tool used for? What is the name of that tool? And I knew all of those things. So it was easy for me to break it down to them. And I think also the fact that, I'd already started practicing, and, and over the years, even when you're training and people tell you that, I have this challenge with how I handle my clientele, or I remember recently where I was talking to them about pricing, and I gave them an instance where I ordered an item from the UK through one of my shippers I use when I buy items, and it was a jersey I ordered. I'm a Liverpool fan. I ordered a Liverpool jersey, and so it was on sale. So I was excited to get it for a fantastic deal. And then they ship to Lagos, and I want to pick it up, and they say there's a 15,000 naira handling charge. I'm like, what handling charge for these t-shirts? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get you.
And so I use that as, I told them, I said, see, listen, when you are pricing, when you make a product and you have to deliver, you should understand that packaging the product is time. That handling charge is the packaging of the product, moving the product from
point A to point B.
Exactly. All of those things is part of your pricing. A lot of us just feel, let me just make the item and deliver it.
Yeah. So you don't just, for what I've noticed, what I can take from it, you don't just teach them about how to make it, you teach them how to sell it.
Yeah, so I have master classes with I've done a couple of master classes with the NEPC, Southwest Lagos. Shout out to the NEPC. They've been really helpful in their mandate to grow non-oil exports. They've been really, really helpful. We've trained quite a number of people with their help, and so I have master classes where I go to talk about talk about issues. It's not just training. Yeah, I go to talk about issues, not just about training, and and we have those discussions there. We have discussions how to handle yourself, how to talk to your client, how to price your product.
That's so cool.
Basically soft skills.
Soft skills,
very, very important. Also, even when you are starting a business, why it's important that you have a CAC registration, why you need to work on paying taxes.
Yeah.
All of those things, so that you're doing it well. So that you don't go into the business and 3 years later, somebody's asking for your tax documents, and you're like, what? You just find out that you're under a mountain of
tax debt.
Yeah, and you don't want that to happen.
Yeah.
So we have to talk to them about all these things and try to teach them, and and those master classes are usually very, very interesting.
What's the is it age sensitive or just
no?
Okay, there any wow.
No.
Who would you say is the oldest person you have taught that has been under your tutelage? Wow.
60. She was 60 something.
Wow, and how's she doing?
Fantastic. She owns her outfit in Delta State.
Wow.
It's quite big, and she does a lot of stuff. And then she still calls me and says, I'm having this challenge.
Oh, that's so cool.
I hope you're not annoyed. I say, no ma. Good evening, ma. How can I help you? She can call me 4 times in a day saying, I need this challenge, I need to have this issue, and I'm always there too.
Yeah,
and I have students who have trained who, recently one reached out to me on Instagram and said she had a challenge with a bag. She sent pictures, and I said, okay, this is what I think you should do. I'm very, going back to teaching people, it's what I'm more passionate about now than even making products to sell.
Right.
Because I think the older I'm becoming, the more I'm more concerned about how I can be an positive agent of change in my community. I reckon that, or I understand that, it's in Nigeria now where most of us are concerned with just our immediate families. Once my daughter is fine, once I'm
everybody
fine,
else can
go commute. We need to transcend that, thought process, that way of thinking, and understand that, the question has to be, what is your contribution to society? And I try to tell people, everybody has a lot of bad things to say about Nigeria. I'm leaving the country, and I was of that mindset at some point, but it didn't. I feel a lot better now that I have the mindset of, okay, this is what I'm trying to do for the younger people. So I go out of my way to talk to them, and even when I see young guys in their in the age range of 18 to 10. I asked them, so what are you doing with yourself? If you have a job, do you want a job? Are you serious? I interview them, and then if they're willing, I take them on to employ them, because I'm looking to expand also.
Yeah, I mean, I see they are quite passionate about community, quite passionate about imparting knowledge into the younger people.
Generation.
Just basically being, like I said, being a change agent. Do you see yourself going to some sort of advocacy, advocacy for young people? Do you see yourself going into that, being like a social activist in that regard?
Well,
Hanka Reach will still be the vehicle you would use to drive that change.
So what I'll do is I like to be as practical as possible. It's knowledge I have, it's a skill I have, and it's almost like teaching somebody to catch fish as opposed to giving the person a fish. If the journey takes me to a point where I find myself advocating for young people, then why not? I will do it. But for now, I'm working with what I have. Which is being able to pass knowledge to to people, and whatever chance I get, I'm happy to speak to people and say, okay, come, how can we impart knowledge into the younger people and make them stand tall? And it's very, very, very important, because you realize that the percentage of young people, especially young men. I know I'm happy that now we have a lot of people looking at young women and all of that, but a little part of me feels that young men too are also neglected.
Yes.
And that's why I'm focusing on talking to young men, and I also have in the classes I teach, there are also young women who you'd even be amazed that the leather goods industry is more saturated with women. That
was what I was going to ask. Why is that so? If you take the leather fair, for instance, just doing a walkthrough of the stalls, maybe men are probably like, if I stand to be corrected, 25%.
Yeah, thereabout. I think women buy bags more than men do, and if you look at all of the brands, you have a lot more handbag brands.
Yes.
And in the leather goods industry, making of handbags is really big, but it's just one niche. There's so many other things you can do. There's furniture, there's apparel, clothing. There's so many other things you can do. And I have people. I'm not, I'm not majorly into making things for women, like women's bags and all of that. And I had a lot of people come to me and say, why don't you make things for men? I'm like, you have a lot of other people making women's things now. They are men, and there are other things you can do, because men too carry bags and all that. Albeit not as much as women do, because I mean, a man, by the time you have 2 bags, you're like, what do I need?
What do I need? Yeah, a woman can have.
But a man want the same design of bag in 4 different colors, and she's happy to take all of them, and so I think that's the reason why, that's the reason why.
So from photography to leather, what's next? What's next for Otejiri?
To be honest, I'm a bit worried about, moving on to something else. That being said, I will move on to something else.
As your friend, I know. I
will move on to something else. But I'm trying as much as possible to keep it in this sphere
of the creative. I mean, it will be in the creative space.
And by that I mean, I'm trying to do something closely related to leather goods. So I took a carpentry course in 2019, and I haven't been able to do anything with that yet. But I reckon at some.
So you will be going to wood.
Yeah, I mean furniture.
Furniture. Okay.
Furniture, basically.
Right.
But furniture where the leather is involved.
Leather, yes. Okay.
Because I already have that as a foundation.
That as a foundation. Okay. All right.
So that's something I'm interested in doing. But unlike how it was when I started, the leather, when I started my journey in leather goods production, where it was just me doing that, I don't have the time to do all of that. So I'm looking to partner with an experienced, someone experienced in carpentry. For me, the idea is to have the know-how, with regards to design.
Right.
And I think also it's one of the things I try to teach young people, because it's not just about making a bag. You have to have design at the back of your mind, because
Right.
design is what solves problems. And whatever sort of business we find ourselves in, we're solving a problem. Even if you are selling a bag, you're solving a problem for
Yep.
for somebody. So I try to tell people, I said, it's not just about making a bag. It's about making a bag that works with the person. I try to tell people, it's not just about making a beautiful bag. I say, if you make a beautiful bag that is cumbersome to carry, the person who buys the bag from you loves the bag,
But
likes to look at the bag, but the person will not use the bag. By the time you use the bag once and it's choking your body, one kind, you just go and put it down
and
say,
drop it.
this bag is fine, no? Check
But
him out every day.
Let me just be
And I don't want that. I want people to use the items. I want people to derive satisfaction when, they bring out their hard-earned money to buy
purchase.
items. So that's one of the things I always tell the younger people. It's all about design and dimension. You have to think like a designer from the get-go. Because if you don't do that, that's why you see foreign products and you like it. It looks so beautiful, and there's even what they call agronomics, how the product works with the human body.
Human body, yeah.
All of those things you have to take into consideration. It's not just check in shebag here, Jeko red ati black. Sorry, I'm speaking Yoruba, but
No,
I reckon.
No, we don't worry. You
Yeah.
just flow.
Yeah,
We're flowing.
so that's that's.
Yeah, I get you. So what would you say? What would you say is your parting shot for that entrepreneur who is good at many things? Like they are good. They are good at many things, and they can't seem to.
I think it's important we focus, right? People always say you can do a lot of things, and that's why I answered the previous question you asked. I said, I'm going to, but it's important when you go into one thing, you need
Good
to
at
give
it.
it time. No, not even being good. If you do one thing consistently for 5 years, you'll be good at it.
Yeah, true.
You don't have to be a genius. Just do it consistently for 5 years, because you're constantly learning ways in which you're not going to fail at doing it.
Right.
Because you're constantly going to be making mistakes and learning
And
from those
those
mistakes.
mistakes, yes.
So just be consistent with one thing. Pick something and be consistent with it for a while.
But that person will say, what about those other things that I'm good at? Like Ted did photography, was good at it, dropped it. He's doing leather.
I did photography for how many years before?
Ish.
10-ish. And you would also need to understand that leaving photography, I'm in leather. I'm majorly into leather now. What that has done is it has made my photography business to what? Suffer.
Yeah.
So there's no way around it, really. You can't be a genius, except you are a billionaire who now has money to say, okay, set up this thing. I'll come in, we'll talk about it. But you've employed people who are knowledgeable in that aspect to keep it running. But if you're going to be building something from the ground up for starters, then you have to give it a little bit of focus. Not even a little bit, a lot of focus.
And
consistency. Consistency is basically it.
Yeah.
Regardless of what anybody says. So smart work, is crap. I mean, there's nothing like smart work. Hard work is what I know.
Yeah.
Smart work is just somebody who is, I think, trying to cut corners. When you work hard, say if it takes you 5 hours to make an item and you work hard at it, you begin to learn ways in which to make it faster.
Yes.
So hard work or smart work is birthed from hard work
and consistency.
Because if you don't work hard, then you won't be able to understand the ways in which to navigate. And that's why we have this meme that we all look at, where they say, if it takes me 3 hours, 15 minutes to do a job, it's because I've spent 10 years learning how to do that job in 15 minutes. So you look at the person and you're like, oh, this person is trying to outsmart me. But no, the person has a lot of experience. And that's why he can do it that fast. That's how it works.
I mean, in closing, what would you like to be known for? At the end of everything, what would Otejo Ejumaboni like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for somebody who, or remembered as somebody who, that's a good question. Let me take a moment to think about it, or take a moment to
like properly
coin my words. Yeah. I don't know exactly how to say this, but like now I'm really passionate about community and helping
Yeah,
young people.
yeah.
And I'd like to be remembered as somebody who, created value in the lives of other people. Really, I think that's basically it, because all we're doing as human beings is exchanging value. Even when money is not involved, we're constantly exchanging value.
I know behind camera we're talking about behind the mic we're talking about how there's so much focus on money.
Yeah.
And it just seems like every other thing that is more important than money is totally neglected. Yeah.
You blame it on the world in general, because advertising is constantly pushing. Oh, why do you need one shoe? You need 10 shoes. Why do you need? So it's more of the case of advertising constantly telling you that it's quantity over quality, but that's not the truth. We know it's always going to be quality over quantity. And those are some things that we need to, as adults, because we know these things, we need to constantly push it to the younger generation. There's going to be a lot of resistance on their part to get that information from us. But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it. We have to constantly do it, and put ourselves out there for the younger generation. And, it's the only legacy we have to leave behind. It's not the number of houses we had when we're on earth. It's how you impacted other lives. That's what makes you successful. That's my own definition of success.
Thank you so much, Otejiri, for finding time to speak to us on the pod. How do we find you on socials?
We're quite active on. Well, we're trying to be as active as possible on Hanker, on Instagram. At Hanker and Reach. That's spelled HANKERANDREECH.
So follow, find, purchase stuff from Hanker and Reach. Hanker and Reach also has a website. You can buy on their website, hankerandreach.com.
hankerandreachgoods.com.
Like I said, thank you so much, bro. I really appreciate
Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to talk to you.
You speaking to us.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to this. I told you it was going to be an exciting episode. Till the next time you hear from us. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Coffee and Beans Pod, COFFEEBEANSPOD. Like I always say, have a day job. Follow us on IG at Outspoken Clothiers, OUTSPOKNCLOTHIERS. Till the next episode, drink coffee, stay inspired.